On Thanksgiving Day, my daughter-in-law threw a plate at me after I refused to let her parents move into my house. "You old egoist," she said, and my son added, "Don't call me your son anymore." I just smiled, got up, and called my brother. Everything is just as you said. Activate the plan. 15 minutes later, I'm Elijah Harper. I'm 68 years old, and for the last 15 years, I've been living a quiet life. Maybe too quiet. Before we get to that plate shattering against my wall, let me know in the comments where you're watching this story from. And if you've ever had to deal with family who mistook your kindness for weakness, hit that like button and subscribe. Your support means more than you know. The smell of Thanksgiving has always been my anchor, that mix of sage thyme and slow roasting turkey. It's the smell of my wife, Evelyn. Even though she's been gone for 15 years, that scent brings her right back into this kitchen. But this year, the smell was soured by something else. Fear not my fear, my son's. Marcus was pacing the worn linoleum of my kitchen, his dress shoes squeaking. He was wearing a suit that was too tight, trying to impress people who didn't matter in a house he was ashamed of. "Dad, are you absolutely sure you don't want me to just order catering?" He asked for the fourth time, stopping to straighten a picture frame that was already straight. I basted the turkey, the skin a perfect deep golden brown. "I told you, Marcus. Thanksgiving is cooked at home. Your mother." I know, I know." He cut me off, his voice tight with irritation. "Mom always said that, but Dad Lauren's parents, they're different. They're used to, I knew they were used to the Oakwood lifestyle, the sprawling mansions, the private clubs, the restaurants where the price of a single steak could feed my neighborhood for a week." What Marcus didn't know was that I owned that restaurant along with the bank that held his car loan and the real estate firm that employed him. I just nodded, playing the part I'd perfected for the last decade, the part of Elijah Eli Harper, the quiet, simple-minded widower, living on a meager pension in San Francisco's Hillcrest. This house, this little two-bedroom bungalow, Evelyn and I bought it for $15,000 back when we had nothing but each other. The neighborhood is gentrifying now. Developers, sharks, and cheap suits knock on my door every week offering $1.2 million in cash, thinking I'm some old fool they can lowball and flip. They don't know I own the development fund that's buying up the whole block. I keep this house because Evelyn loved it, because it was the last promise I made to her. "Don't let the money change us, Eli," she'd whispered, her hand in mine. "Especially don't let it change our boy." I failed that last part. The clack, clack, clack of high heels on my original hardwood floors announced Lauren's arrival. She wasn't dressed for a family dinner. She was dressed for a hostile takeover. She wore a sharp white pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment used to. She never called me Dad. They're 15 minutes out. Their ride share just crossed Main Street. She surveyed my living room. Her nose wrinkled in a way she probably thought was subtle. Her eyes landed on the mantelpiece, the heart of this home. It was crowded with 35 years of memories. Marcus's first baseball trophy, my retirement plaque from the community center, a cover story, and right in the middle, the 8x10 wedding photo of me and Evelyn. We were so young, so full of hope. "Can we please do something about this clutter?" Lauren asked, pointing a perfectly manicured finger at my wife's picture. Marcus flinched. "Lauren, come on. That's Mom. I know, honey, but it doesn't match the vibe we're trying for." Her parents are very design conscious. "It looks messy. Just put it in a drawer until they leave. It's just one dinner for me." I stopped basting. I turned and looked at her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. "The picture stays." Lauren's eyes narrowed. She hated that word. "Fine, but don't blame me when they think we're living in squalor." She swept out of the room, leaving a cloud of expensive perfume and tension. Marcus gave me a helpless look. "She's just stressed, Dad. Be nice." "I am being nice, son," I said. "I haven't told her what I really think." The doorbell rang and I heard Marcus rush to answer it, his voice suddenly loud and artificially cheerful. "Victor, Marlene, welcome. Welcome, come on in." I wiped my hands on my apron and walked into the living room. And there they were, Marlene and Victor Lauren's parents. Marlene was draped in a cashmere shawl that probably cost more than $1.500. Victor was wearing a luxury watch that was so big and bright it looked like a prop. They looked at me then around the room, and their smiles, stretched thin and tight, were identical to their daughters. "Oh, Eli, you must be Marcusere's father," Marlene said, extending a hand but not offering it. Just let her fingers dangle, just expecting me to shake them. "This is him." "Mom," Lauren said, rushing over to kiss them. "What a charming bungalow," Marcus Victor said, his eyes scanning the ceiling looking for cracks. "So much character. It's like stepping back in time." "It's cozy," I said, offering a simple smile. "Can I get you something to drink?" "Do you have any sparkling water?" "Perrier San Pellegro?" Marlene asked. "I have tap water, or I can make you some sweet tea," I replied. Lauren winced. "They'll just have waters." "Thank you." We sat down at the dinner table, my old oak table, the one I'd built with my own hands with Evelyn. It was set with her best china, the plates we only used for Thanksgiving and Christmas. The conversation led by Marlene and Victor was a performance of casual wealth. The flight was exhausting. Marlene sighed, dabbing her lips with a napkin. "First class is just not what it used to be." The legroom was adequate at best. Victor chimed in. "So, Eli Marcus mentioned you're in property management." "Is that right? I carved the turkey." The knife slid through it like butter. "Something like that. I look after a few places here and there. Keeps an old man busy." My internal monologue was less polite. "I look after 42 commercial properties, 3 tech campuses, and the bank that holds your underwater mortgage. I owned that restaurant along with the bank that held his car loan and the real estate firm that employed him." I just nodded, playing the part I'd perfected for the last decade, the part of Elijah Eli Harper, the quiet, simple-minded widower living on a meager pension in San Francisco's Hillcrest. This house, this little 2-bedroom bungalow, Evelyn and I bought it for $15,000 back when we had nothing but each other. The neighborhood is gentrifying now. Developers, sharks, and cheap suits knock on my door every week offering $1.2 million in cash, thinking I'm some old fool they can lowball and flip. They don't know I own the development fund that's buying up the whole block. I keep this house because Evelyn loved it, because it was the last promise I made to her. "Don't let the money change us, Eli." She'd whispered, her hand in mine. "Especially don't let it change our boy." I failed that last part. The clack, clack, clack of high heels on my original hardwood floors announced Lauren's arrival. She wasn't dressed for a family dinner. She was dressed for a hostile takeover. She wore a sharp white pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment used to. She never called me Dad. They're 15 minutes out. Their rideshare just crossed Main Street. She surveyed my living room, her nose wrinkled in a way she probably thought was subtle. Her eyes landed on the mantelpiece, the heart of this home. It was crowded with 35 years of memories. Marcus's first baseball trophy, my retirement plaque from the community center, a cover story, and right in the middle, the 8x10 wedding photo of me and Evelyn. We were so young, so full of hope. "Can we please do something about this clutter?" Lauren asked, pointing a perfectly manicured finger at my wife's picture. Marcus flinched. "Lauren, come on. That's Mom." "I know, honey, but it doesn't match the vibe we're trying for. Her parents are very design conscious. It looks messy. Just put it in a drawer until they leave. It's just one dinner for me." I stopped basting. I turned and looked at her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. "The picture stays." Lauren's eyes narrowed. She hated that word. "Fine, but don't blame me when they think we're living in squalor." She swept out of the room, leaving a cloud of expensive perfume and tension. Marcus gave me a helpless look. "She's just stressed, Dad. Be nice." "I am being nice, son," I said. I haven't told her what I really think. The doorbell rang and I heard Marcus rush to answer it, his voice suddenly loud and artificially cheerful. "Victor, Marlene, welcome." "Welcome. Come on in." I wiped my hands on my apron and walked into the living room. And there they were, Marlene and Victor Loren's parents. Marlene was draped in a cashmere shawl that probably cost more than $1,500. Victor was wearing a luxury watch that was so big and bright it looked like a prop. They looked at me then around the room, and their smiles, stretched thin and tight, were identical to their daughters. "Oh, Eli, you must be Marcusere's father," Marlene said, extending a hand but not offering it. Just let her fingers dangle, just expecting me to shake them. This is him, Mom, Lauren said, rushing over to kiss them. What a charming bungalow, Marcus Victor said, his eyes scanning the ceiling looking for cracks. So much character. It's like stepping back in time. It's cozy, I said, offering a simple smile. Can I get you something to drink? Do you have any sparkling water? Perrier San Pellegro, Marlene asked. I have tap water, or I can make you some sweet tea, I replied. Lauren winced. They'll just have waters. Thank you. We sat down at the dinner table, my old oak table, the one I'd built with my own hands with Evelyn. It was set with her best china, the plates we only used for Thanksgiving and Christmas. The conversation led by Marlene and Victor was a performance of casual wealth. The flight was exhausting. Marlene sighed, dabbing her lips with a napkin. First class is just not what it used to be. The legroom was adequate at best. Victor chimed in. So, Eli Marcus mentioned you're in property management. Is that right? I carved the turkey. The knife slid through it like butter. Something like that. I look after a few places here and there. Keeps an old man busy. My internal monologue was less polite. I look after 42 commercial properties, 3 tech campuses, and the bank that holds your underwater mortgage. I owned the restaurant where you ate last night. But again, I was the simple man. Richard leaned forward, trying to find common ground man to man. So Eli Marcus mentioned you're in property management. Is that right? A bit of landlording. Here it was. My cue. I gave him my most humble, slightly confused look. Oh, management is a strong word. I just look after a few small places. A duplex over in West End, a little 4-unit building near the old Raylard. You know, just collecting rents, fixing toilets. It keeps an old man busy. Victor chuckled a short, condescending sound. Right. Fixing toilets. Tough gig. I'm in finance myself, mergers and acquisitions. We just closed a massive deal in North Carolina. $40 million, a real game-changer. The bonus on that one alone, let's just say Marlene is getting a new Mercedes for Christmas. I put a slice of turkey on his plate. That's fascinating, Victor. Must be stressful. You didn't close that deal. My fund EH Enterprises vetoed that acquisition last Tuesday because your due diligence was a joke. Your company's stock is going to tank on Monday when the news breaks. But please enjoy the turkey. Marlene, sensing the conversation was too focused on her husband, steered it back to her achievements. Of course, Victor works hard, but I'm the one who manages the real portfolio, our investments. Lauren gets her sharp mind from me. Oh, I asked finding interest. Oh yes, real estate. We have a lovely little condo and tropical resort ocean views, and we're looking at a place in the Cape Cod. You have to diversify, Eli. You can't just fix toilets. You should let Marcus and Lauren guide you. They know the market. The condo and tropical resort is a timeshare. She owns 2 weeks in September. The place in the Cape Cod is her browsing Zillow. I know this because my private investigator who I put on them the second Marcus announced his engagement is very, very good. I'll keep that in mind, I said. More yams. Marcus. My son had been silent for almost 15 minutes. He was just pushing food around his plate. He was ashamed. Ashamed of the worn finish on my dining table. Ashamed of my simple cooking. Ashamed of his toilet-fixing father. He was drowning in their sea of arrogance. And instead of swimming to shore, he was trying to impress them by drowning too. He suddenly cleared his throat, desperate to contribute to show that he too was on their level. Actually, Dad, he said, his voice a little too loud. We were talking about this house. Like you said, Victor, the neighborhood is booming. It's gentrifying. Zillow estimates this place, this shack, is worth a pretty penny. He could sell this shack for a pretty penny. Get him into a nice condo, something cleaner, more modern. I felt the slight sting. This shack, as he called it, was his childhood home. Lauren, seeing her opening, seized it. She placed her knife and fork down with a delicate click. Actually, Eli, she said, her voice dripping with fake predatory sweetness. We have a much better idea, don't we, Mom? Marlene beamed, placing her hand on her husband's arm as if they were about to announce a royal engagement. We do. We have the most wonderful news, don't we, Vic? Victor cleared his throat, taking charge. He was the self-appointed patriarch of this new merged family. Eli, as you know, we're based in Dallas, but we've fallen in love with San Francisco, the business opportunities, the warmth. Frankly, we're tired of the cold. So Lauren jumped in, unable to contain her excitement. Mom and Dad have decided to move here permanently. She looked at me, expecting what applause? An old man's grateful tears. I kept my face neutral. I took another small bite of the pecan pie I'd baked. It tasted like ash. That's nice, I said, my voice mild. I'm sure Marcus and Lauren will enjoy having you close. Oh, we will, Lauren said, and her voice dropped into that syrupy, conspiratorial tone that always means she's about to ask for something she has no right to. But Eli, while they look for the perfect Oakwood mansion, which could take months, they need a place to stay. And hotel suites are just so impersonal, not to mention the expense. The table went quiet. This was it, the ambush, the real reason for this Thanksgiving dinner. I looked at Marcus. He was staring at his plate again, tracing the pattern on the china with his fingernail. He knew what was coming. He was a coward. He was letting it happen. We were thinking, Marlene said, her voice dripping with a sympathy so fake it was insulting, that you must be so lonely here, Eli. All alone in this big house, she gestured around my modest dining room. It's really too much for one person to manage. The upkeep, the cleaning the space. It has 3 bedrooms, Victor added, leaning forward as if this was the final irrefutable argument. 3. It's wasteful, really. An inefficient use of prime real estate, if you ask me. I didn't ask him. So we came up with the perfect common-sense solution, Lauren announced, placing her hand over mine on the table. Her skin was cold. Mom and Dad can move in here with you. She smiled a wide, bright, terrifying smile as if she had just solved all my life's problems. Marcus finally looked up, a forced, sickly grin plastered on his face. Yeah, Dad, think about it. You wouldn't be alone. The house would be full. Like old times. Like old times. My blood ran cold. He dared to invoke the memory of Evelyn in this transaction. Marlene, not waiting for my answer, was already redecorating in her head. It's perfect. Victor and I can take the master bedroom, of course. It's the largest and it gets the morning light, and we can use the 3rd bedroom as our office. Victor needs a quiet place for his international calls. I said nothing. I just looked at them. The audacity was breathtaking. They were dividing up my home in front of me like vultures divvying up a carcass. I looked at my son. I gave him one last chance. Marcus, I said, my voice quiet but carrying across the table. What do you say about this? Marcus fidgeted. He wouldn't look at me. He looked at Lauren, then at her father, Victor, the man with the fake finance job and the foreclosed house. Well, Dad, it does make sense financially. You are alone, and they need a place, and we could all be one big family. It's Thanksgiving, after all. He had made his choice. He had sold his mother's memory for the approval of these empty, arrogant people. The anger I expected to feel didn't come. It wasn't hot. It was the Arctic cold certainty of a decision being finalized. I placed my napkin down on the table next to the half-eaten pie. I looked at Marlene, at Victor, at Lauren, and finally at the stranger sitting in my son's chair. No. Minuan Danong Juin. The doorbell chimed, a sharp, demanding sound that cut right through the quiet hum of my oven. Marcus practically leaped over the sofa to answer it, plastering on a smile so wide it must have hurt his face. They're here. They're here. Dad, Lauren, be nice? He swung the door open. Victor, Marlene, welcome. Welcome, come on in. And in they walked. Or rather, they made an entrance. Marlene was draped in a floor-length cashmere shawl the color of oatmeal. It was the kind of garment designed to look simple while costing more than a used car. Victor was a walking advertisement for boardroom arrogance. He wore a dark suit that was just a little too tight, but the star of the show was the luxury watch on his wrist. It wasn't just a watch. It was a statement. A big, bright, gold-plated statement that screamed, "I have arrived." They paused on the welcome mat, not quite stepping in, just observing. Oh, Marlene said, her voice a high-pitched trill. Marcus, honey, this is it. Her eyes swept over my living room, the comfortable worn armchair where Evelyn used to read, the sturdy oak coffee table I built, the braided rug we bought at a flea market 15 years ago. It's charming. She finally landed on, and the word hung in the air like an insult. Victor was less subtle. He stepped inside, looked up at the original crown molding, and said, "Wow, solid bones, lots of character. It's like stepping back in time, isn't it, honey?" "Completely," Marlene agreed, clutching her designer bag to her chest as if she were afraid the air in my house might tarnish it. Lauren rushed over, air kissing both of them. "Mom, Dad, you made it. You remember Eli?" "Of course," Victor said, finally turning to me. He gave me that handshake, the one where he grips too hard to establish dominance, but not hard enough to show respect. "Eli, good to see you. Still holding down the fort here, and what's this neighborhood, again?" "Adair Park. It's home, Victor," I said. I was playing the part they had written for me. The confused, weak old man. The picture Lauren said. Her voice was no longer sweet or polite. It was low and sharp as a razor. "This is it. A postman's pension, this tiny crumbling house that smells like old food. This is your contribution." "Lauren, lower your voice," Marcus pleaded. "He'll hear you." "I don't care if he hears me," she spat. "He needs to know my parents are wiring us $30,000 just for the deposit on the Oakwood Country Club." 30,000. And what is he contributing a recipe for dumplings? It's just, he's simple, okay? He worked hard his whole life. This is all he has. "Stop saying hard work," she snapped. "The man who cleans my father's pool works hard. That doesn't mean I want him at the wedding reception." "Marcus, you promised me your family was comfortable. You promised me he had savings. This is not comfortable. This is a liability." There was a heavy silence. I stood perfectly still, my hands pruning in the water. "What do you want me to do, Lauren?" Marcus finally said. His voice was broken, defeated. "You need to handle it," she said, her voice turning cold and pragmatic. "You need to find out exactly what he has. People like him. These old-timers, they sometimes have cash saved up or bonds. Or maybe the house is paid off. We could leverage it. We need something from him, Marcus. Otherwise, this merger is completely unbalanced. My parents are investing in you. They need a return." I held my breath. I listened to my son stay silent. He didn't defend me. He didn't defend his mother's memory. He didn't tell this woman to get out of our house. He just said, Okay, I'll talk to him. I'll see what I can do." They left a few minutes later, all smiles again. "Thank you for the dinner, Eli. So rustic." I closed the door behind them. I washed and dried the last dish. I sat down in my quiet house in the chair Evelyn always loved, and I knew. I knew my son was lost. I knew that Lauren was not just a gold digger. She was an exterminator, and I was the pest she wanted gone. It was 4 months before the wedding, and Marcus showed up at my door alone. This was a red flag. Ever since Lauren had sunk her claws into him, she was always there attached to his arm, a silent, smiling warden. But he came alone on a Tuesday night. He looked thin. The expensive suit he wore, a size too small, looked cheap on him, wrinkled at the elbows. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in a week. "Hey, Dad. You busy? Never too busy for you, son?" "Come in." He walked into the living room but didn't sit. He paced. He ran his hand through his hair, a nervous habit I hadn't seen since he was in high school. "You look tired, Marcus. Want some coffee? I just made a fresh pot." No, coffee, thanks," he said, his voice tight. I just need to talk to you for a minute. Manto man." I leaned against the door frame, my arms crossed and waited. I knew this wasn't a social visit. This was a transaction. "Dad." He started staring at the floor. I know I haven't been around much. This wedding planning, it's a monster. Lauren's family. They do things on a whole different scale, so I've heard." I said, "Yeah, and well, we've hit a snag." He finally looked at me. His eyes were bloodshot. "It's just a temporary thing, a cash flow issue." You know, cash flow, her word. I didn't know that word. I knew broke, and I knew rich. Cash flow was the word people used when they were pretending to be rich, but were actually broke. "The venue," he said, waving his hand vaguely. "The Oakwood Country Club." It's incredible, Dad. But they need the final deposit by Friday. And Lauren's parents. They're covering everything, of course. They've been amazing. They're footing the bill for almost the entire wedding. That's generous of them," I said, my voice flat. So generous, he said, relief flooding his face as if he'd passed the first test. The thing is, Dad, their money, it's tied up. It's in one of Reginald's private funds, an international account. It just, it takes 45 days to liquidate without a massive penalty. You know how it is with those big trust funds. Elijah Harper, chairman of a $400 million logistics empire, nodded slowly. No, son. I don't know how it is. Tell me. He flushed a dark red crawling up his neck. It's complicated. Okay, the point is, the deposit is due Friday and we're short. Just for a few weeks. He stopped pacing. He stood in the middle of my living room, a 34-year-old man looking like a terrified 12-year-old. Dad, I need to borrow $30,000. He said it like he was asking for $300. The silence in the room stretched out. I could hear the old grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. The clock Evelyn and I had bought at a flea market in Riverside. I know he said, rushing to fill the silence. I know it's a huge amount and I hate asking. God, I hate this. But it's not even a real loan, Dad. It's just a bridge. Reginald Lauren's father, he is going to wire me the money the second his fund clears. First of the month, you'll have it right back, plus interest if you want. I swear on Mom's memory. He should not have done that. He should never have brought Evelyn's name into this den of lies. My first instinct, the businessman in me, was to laugh. It was the oldest, stalest scam in the book. The money's tied up. I knew from Victor's preliminary checks that Reginald Harrington didn't have a private fund. He had a foreclosed property in Nevada and 3 maxed-out credit cards. The father in me, however, felt a different kind of coldness. I saw my son. I saw the desperation in his eyes. It was real. But it wasn't the desperation of a man planning a wedding. It was the desperation of a man terrified of the woman he was engaged to. He was terrified of failing her. He was terrified of what she would say if he came back empty-handed. This was my crossroads. If I said no, if I called his bluff, I would confirm all of Lauren's accusations that I was just a broke, useless old man, that I was a liability. It would push Marcus further away, right into her arms. He would resent me for embarrassing him, for not stepping up. But if I said yes, I was financing my own execution. I was rewarding the lie. I was funding the very woman who was systematically poisoning my son against me. I was paying for the rope she would use to hang me. I looked at him, really looked at him. The sweat on his brow, the slight tremor in his hands. He wasn't asking for money to start a life. He was asking for money to keep his manipulator happy. And just like that, I knew what I had to do, to see how deep the rot truly went. You have to give it room to grow. Okay, I said. Marcus blinked as if he'd misheard. Okay, just like that. I'll write you a check, I said. I walked to the old wooden desk where I still kept my postman checkbook, the one from the local credit union. I pulled it out and wrote the check, $30,000. I tore it slowly from the book and handed it to him. His hands shook as he took the paper. He stared at it. Dad, thank you. Thank you. You won't regret this. I'll pay you back. Reginald will pay you back. I swear. I'm sure he will, I said. He hugged me then. A fast, awkward, guilty hug. The hug of a thief who just got away with the loot. You're a lifesaver, Dad. Lauren is going to be so relieved. I got to go. I got to go tell her. Go on, son. He practically ran out the door. I heard his car start and speed away, tires squealing just a little. I stood there for a long time, listening to the silence of the house. I walked back to the fireplace and picked up the photograph of Evelyn, the one from our 20th anniversary. Her smile was so bright, so honest. Oh, Evelyn, I whispered to the empty room. What have I done? I had just paid my son to betray me. I hope I'm doing the right thing, my love. I truly hope I am. Because right now it feels like I just loaded the gun they planned to use on me. But it was the only way. It was the only way to see the end of this. I had just bought $30,000 worth of fertilizer, and now I was going to sit back and watch exactly what kind of poison would grow. The 4 months that followed were quiet, too quiet. Marcus and I exchanged a few brief, awkward text messages. He confirmed the wedding date and time. Friday, 6 p.m., Beaumont. I asked if they needed any more help with the deposits. He replied almost instantly, "No, Dad, we're all set. Reginald's fund finally cleared. Everything is perfect. We can't wait to see you. We can't wait to see you." The lie was so easy for him now. I spent those 4 months in a state of cold observation. I went to my real office at the Ellis Harper Tower twice a week, meeting with Victor, signing off on acquisitions in Hong Kong and shipping routes in the Pacific Ocean. The rest of the time, I was Elijah, the retired postman, working in my yard reading my books. I let the silence build. I gave them all the rope they needed. When Friday finally arrived, the day of the supposed wedding, I woke up before the sun. I felt a strange calm. Today was the day of the test. Today I would find out once and for all what was left of my son. I spent the morning in my workshop polishing the chrome on my classic sedan until it shone like a mirror. This wasn't just a car. It was a statement. Evelyn had loved this car. It has substance. Eli, she'd said, not like those flimsy new things. It was the car I'd drive to my son's wedding. At 3:00 p.m., I began to prepare. I didn't go to the simple closet where I kept my postman's work shirts and my comfortable slacks. I went to the back of my bedroom to the custom-built cedar-lined wardrobe that Marcus had never once looked inside. I took out the suit. Marcus and Lauren expected me to show up in a 15-year-old polyester suit from retail store, the one I used to wear to church on Easter. They expected me to look like their liability. Instead, I pulled out the tailored suit. It was a dark charcoal gray, almost black cut, from a wool so fine it felt like silk. I'd had it made in Rome on a business trip 4 years ago. It was the suit of Elijah Harper, the chairman. I put it on. The jacket settled on my shoulders with a familiar, comforting weight. I chose a simple silver silk tie and my luxury watch. It was Evelyn's last gift to me for the man who has everything. The engraving on the back read, "Accept more time." I looked at myself in the mirror. The 68-year-old postman was gone. In his place was a man they had never met, a man they had gravely underestimated. At 5 p.m., I drove the classic sedan not to the wedding, but to a quiet, discreet granite building in Financial District. It didn't have a large sign. It just had a small brass plaque, Whitaker Private Bank. I didn't use the credit union for my real life. I walked inside. The lobby was silent, all marble and rich mahogany. A young woman at the desk looked up, saw me, and immediately smiled. "Good afternoon, Mr. Harper. Mr. Whitaker is expecting you." Victor had called ahead. I was shown into a private office. Mr. Whitaker, a man my age with sharp eyes and an impeccable suit of his own, stood up to shake my hand. "Eli," he said. "Good to see you. A big day." "Let's hope so, Thomas," I said. "You have the item." He didn't speak. He simply opened a dark wooden box on his desk and slid a single piece of paper across to me. It wasn't a personal check from my postman account. It was a cashier's check drawn from one of the corporate holding accounts. 1.5 million, Whitaker said quietly, stating the fact. "It's a substantial wedding gift." "It's not a gift, Thomas," I said, picking up the check. I felt the weight of it in my hand. "It's a foundation. It's a stake. It's my son's independence." My plan was simple. I'd seen Marcus shrink. I'd seen Lauren and her family with their invisible funds and supposed lineage make him feel small. This check was his equalizer. This check would buy him his manhood back. It was enough money to free him from whatever financial hold they had on him. Enough for him to stand up and be his own man, not just Lauren's husband. I wanted to see the look on Lauren's face. I wanted to see the look on her arrogant father's face when the broke postman single-handedly funded their entire future. I wanted to see my son realize that everything he was chasing his wife had been insulting. I hope he appreciates it. "Eli," Whitaker said, his voice soft. "So do I, Thomas," I replied, sliding the check into the inner pocket of my tailored suit. "So do I." I walked out of the bank and got back into the classic sedan. I sat there for a minute, my hands on the wheel. This was it, the final test. My son had lied to me about $30,000. He was marrying a woman who saw me as human garbage. He was on a dark path. But maybe, just maybe, this gesture could pull him back. Maybe seeing what I was willing to do for him would remind him who he was. It would remind him of Evelyn. My hope was a small flickering flame, but it was still there. I put the car in drive and headed for Beaumont. I drove toward my son's wedding, holding on to that $1.5 million hope ready to save him. I had no idea I was driving to my own execution. I had no idea that when I arrived, the restaurant would be dark and the betrayal would be absolute. I stood on the dark sidewalk, the phone pressed hard against my ear. It rang once, twice. I expected it to go to voicemail. It was 600 on a Friday, his wedding night. He should be at dinner laughing, giving a speech. He shouldn't be answering his phone. On the third ring, he picked up the first thing that hit me was the noise. It wasn't the refined clink of crystal and the soft murmur of a high-end restaurant. It was loud, a cacophony of pop music announcements over a loudspeaker and the rumble of 1,000 conversations. It sounded like a stadium or an airport. Dad, Marcus's voice was high, breathless. Hey, is everything okay? I can't really talk right now. We're busy. Busy. I gripped the phone, a strange coldness seeping into my hand. Son Marcus. I'm at the restaurant. Beaumont. There was a pause. The background noise on his end seemed to swell and then fade, as if he'd turned his head. What? What restaurant? The wedding restaurant, I said. My voice slow, patient. The one you texted me, Beaumont. I'm standing right outside, but it's locked. Son, it's dark. Did the venue change? Did you forget to tell me? The silence that followed was the loudest sound I had ever heard. It stretched for 4 seconds. 4. 5. It was a cavernous, empty silence where I could hear my own blood pounding in my ears. Then I heard it. It was muffled, him trying to cover the receiver with his hand, but he failed. I heard the sharp, frantic whisper of my daughter-in-law, Lauren. Oh my God, she hissed. Her voice was pure venom. He actually went. He really went to the fake place. Just tell him, get it over with, fake place. The words didn't just register, they slammed into my chest, knocking the air out of my lungs. It wasn't a mistake, it wasn't confusion. It was a plan. A fake place. Marcus came back on the line. His voice was a disaster. It was a high-pitched, desperate squeak, a performance of sudden, shocked realization. Dad. Oh man, oh man. Then he let out a short, barking laugh that held no humor, only panic. This is so awkward. I am so sorry. The wedding, right? The wedding was Dad. The wedding was yesterday. I said nothing. I just stood on the dark sidewalk. My hand, the one in my pocket, was resting on the envelope. The $1.5 million envelope. Yesterday. Yesterday, I finally managed to say. My voice was a growly whisper, but the text you texted me Friday. Beaumont. Yeah, I know. He was talking fast now, the words tumbling out, tripping over each other. It must have been a typo. A crazy autocorrect. You know how these new phones are, Dad. Just crazy. A typo. And in Lauren, she handled all the real invitations, the paper ones. You must not have gotten yours. Oh man, the mail. He laughed again. Dad, you know the mail stuff gets lost all the time, right? How ironic. You a postman, right? He was rambling. He was drowning in his own lie. Ironic, I thought. Ironic that I spent 38 years of my life delivering promises, and my own son couldn't deliver a single truth. It was yesterday, I repeated. It wasn't a question. It was a finality. Yeah, he said, seizing on my quiet tone at the Oakwood Country Club. It was beautiful, Dad. You would have, well, it was just, mostly Lauren's family. We figured you'd want to avoid the fuss. Avoid the fuss. They had decided for me that I wouldn't want to be at my only son's wedding. Marcus, I started, but I didn't know what to say. Look, Dad, I feel terrible. I really do, but I can't fix it right now. I heard her voice again. No whisper this time. Loud, imperious, impatient. Marcus, turn it off. Hurry. They're calling our flight. That's Lauren, he said, and I could hear the profound relief in his voice. He had his escape. We're literally at the gate at Metro Airport. We're boarding for Tahiti, our honeymoon. And he had been at the airport this whole time. A typo, I said. Yeah, a stupid typo. Look, we'll do a dinner or something when we get back. Just you and us. We'll make it up to you, Okay, I gotta go. I love you. Bye. The line clicked. Call ended. I lowered the phone from my ear. I looked at the dark screen. We'll make it up to you. He had hung up on me. He had lied to me. He had stolen the moment from me. He and that woman, they had decided I was not worthy of being there. I was the embarrassing retired postman who would have ruined their perfect wealthy Oakwood wedding. They had treated me like garbage. I stood there under the dim streetlight, a 68-year-old man in a tailored suit holding a $1.5 million check for a wedding that had already happened. A wedding I was never meant to attend. The phone clicked. I stood on the dark sidewalk, my arm still held to my ear, listening to the dead air. Call ended. I slowly lowered my hand. I looked at the dark locked doors of Beaumont. I looked at the empty valet stand. I looked at the sign taped to the glass closed for private event. A typo and autocorrect. The mail. The lies were pathetic. They were weak. They were lazy. They hadn't even bothered to craft a believable story. They didn't respect me enough for that. They had given me an excuse a child would use a frantic scramble of words to get off the phone. They did it on purpose. The thought wasn't an accusation. It was a diagnosis. It was a cold, hard fact settling into place like a block of ice in my chest. They had given me a fake address and a fake date to keep me the embarrassing old postman away from their new glittering life. I felt a profound, heavy sadness. It was the death of something. It was the death of the man I thought my son was. It was the death of the father I had tried to be for 40 years. And in that silence, as the sadness washed over me, something else rose up to take its place. It was cold. It was hard. It was the part of me that Evelyn had always called the chairman. The part of me that built an empire from nothing. The part of me that does not tolerate betrayal. The father Elijah was heartbroken. But the chairman, Mr. Harper, was now wide awake. My hand went to the inner breast pocket of my tailored suit jacket. The envelope was still there, crisp and heavy. I pulled it out. My hand was perfectly steady now. The tremor I'd felt earlier was gone. I opened the unsealed envelope and slid out the cashier's check. Whitaker Private Bank pay to the order of Marcus and Lauren Harper. $1.5 million. This was his future, his independence. This was the foundation I was giving him to build a life where he would never have to bow to people like Lauren or her fraudulent family. This was my love quantified in a way even they could understand. I held the check between my thumb and forefinger. I thought about Marcus, the boy I'd taught to ride a bike. I thought about the man who just hung up on me to go to Tahiti, the man who let his wife call our home a fake place. I brought my other hand up. I folded the check neatly in half, pressing the crease flat and sharp with my fingernail. Then I unfolded it. I tore it right down the middle. The sound was shockingly loud in the quiet night, a clean final rip. It was the sound of a door slamming shut forever. It was the sound of a bloodline ending. I wasn't angry. I was precise. I put the two halves together, folded them, and tore again and again. I didn't stop until the check was a small, confused handful of blue and white confetti. I walked to the metal trash can on the curb, the one I had stood beside during the phone call. I opened my hand. The pieces of my son's inheritance fluttered down, disappearing among old coffee cups and fast food wrappers. I let them go. I felt nothing at all. I walked back to the classic sedan. I didn't get in the driver's seat. I got in the back. I pulled out a different phone from my jacket, a sleek, modern smartphone Marcus had never seen. I opened an app and typed one word: home. A minute later, a black, unmarked armored SUV pulled up silently behind the classic sedan. A man in a dark suit got out of the armored SUV, walked to the classic sedan, got in, and drove it away. The driver of the armored SUV, a man I knew only as Samuel, opened my door for me. Mr. Harper. An unexpected change of plans this evening. You could say that Samuel take me to the tower. Yes, sir. We drove away from Beaumont. I didn't look back. We didn't drive south toward Hillcrest. We drove east toward the glittering spires of downtown San Francisco. Marcus thought I lived in his childhood home. I did sometimes, but my residence was the entire top floor of the Ellis Harper Tower, a 8,000-square FT penthouse that overlooked the city like an eagle's nest, a place Marcus didn't know existed, a place my name wasn't even listed on. The private elevator opened directly into the apartment. The lights came on automatically, revealing a vast space of dark wood glass and steel. It wasn't cozy or rustic. It was the home of a man who moved markets. It was my fortress. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking down on the rivers of light, the millions of lives. I was no longer the man in the dark on the sidewalk. I was back on my throne. I picked up the secure phone on my desk. It rang only once. Eli. Victor James Ellis's voice was sharp, instantly awake, even at this hour. Victor, I need you. What is it? What happened? Is it the deal in Amsterdam? No, I said, looking down at the lights of San Francisco. It's my son. He just tried to play me. There was a dead silence on Victor's end. He knew my rules about family. He knew what it meant for me to make this call. Victor, I said, my voice cold and hard. Summon the legal team. 8:00 a.m. tomorrow. I want a full-spectrum investigation run on Marcus, his wife Lauren, and her entire family, the entire Harringtons. Victor didn't hesitate. What are we looking for? Everything I said? Debts, assets, lies. I want to know who they really are. I want to know where my $30,000 went. And I want you to start drafting the paperwork to revise my will immediately. 8 a.m., Sunday. The city of San Francisco was just waking up, the freeways still quiet. But on the 60th floor of the Ellis Harper Tower, the day was already in full swing. The boardroom was a cavern of polished mahogany and glass overlooking the entire San Francisco basin from the mountains to the sea. Victor James Ellis was pacing. He was 67, my contemporary, a tall, imposing man who favored hand-stitched suits and a permanently furrowed brow. He was the public face of our empire. He was the negotiator, and right now he was furious. I, on the other hand, was perfectly still. I sat at the head of the long table in the same charcoal-tailored suit I had worn the night before. I had not slept. I was staring at a blank legal pad, a cup of black coffee steaming untouched in front of me. A fake address, Victor spat, his voice echoing in the cavernous room. He slammed his open palm onto the mahogany. The sound was like a gunshot. A fake date of all the low gutters snipe tricks. Eli, I told you from the day he brought that woman home. I told you she was a viper. I told you she had dollar signs in her eyes. I looked up at him. My oldest friend, the man who'd held me up at Evelyn's funeral. You did, I said. My voice was calm. It was the voice I used when I was closing a billion-dollar deal, not the voice of a grieving father. And Marcus Victor continued, his voice thick with anger. To let her, to help her, to lie to his own father. After everything you and Evelyn, Eli, this isn't just disrespect. This isn't just greed. This is a declaration of war, I said quietly. Victor stopped pacing and looked at me. It's not war. Victor, it's pest control. I finally picked up the pen. Here's what we are going to do first. I want a team on Marcus and this woman, not our in-house security. I want the best. I want global intelligence firm. Victor's eyebrows shot up. Global intelligence firm, the global intelligence firm the one government's used. Eli, that's heavy artillery for a domestic issue. This stopped being a domestic issue when they decided to commit fraud. I said, I want to know everything. I want to know who Lauren Kensington really is. I want to know who her parents are. Marcus mentioned a private fund that was tied up. I want to know if that fund exists. I want to know if they have a dollar to their name or if they are just high-class grifters. Victor was already scribbling on his own notepad. The Harringtons. Understood. What about the $30? $1,000. My jaw tightened. The $30,000. The loan. He swore on Evelyn's memory he would pay it back when the fund cleared. I want you to trace that check, Victor. I want to know the second it was cashed and where the money went. I want a complete financial autopsy. Every dime. He swore on Evelyn. Victor said, his voice dropping to a dangerous low. I'll have an answer for you by Tuesday. The check trace is easy. Good, I said. Second, I want a complete asset review on Marcus. He thinks I'm a retired postman. He thinks his only inheritance is the house in Hillcrest and a pension account. He has no idea about EH Enterprises. He has no idea about the trusts, the holdings, the offshore accounts. I want to ensure he never knows. You want to cut him out. Victor said it wasn't a question. I want to airlock him, Victor, I corrected. I want to revise my will effective immediately. Everything. Every last penny, every share of EH, every brick. It all goes into a new irrevocable trust, the Evelyn Harper Education Trust. It will be dedicated to funding scholarships for underprivileged kids in Dallas in her name. Victor paused. Eli, what about Sophia, your granddaughter? I closed my eyes for a moment. Sophia, my 6-year-old granddaughter. She was the one part of this that was still pure. You're right, I said. The Hillcrest house that was Evelyn's dream house. It will go to Sophia. We'll put it in a separate trust. You and I will be the sole trustees until she is 30. Marcus and Lauren will not get a splinter of the floorboards. They will not have a key. They will not set foot in that house again. Done, Victor said, writing furiously. Third, I said, leaning forward. This is the most important part. I need to know why. Why this elaborate, stupid lie? If they needed money, why not just ask? Why go to all the trouble of faking a wedding date? Why humiliate me because they're weak? Victor said. No, I said it's not just weakness, it's something else. It felt planned, like they wanted me to be confused, like they were testing me, like they were building a case. Victor stopped writing. He looked up, his eyes narrowing. Building a case. Eli, you don't think I do, I said, the final cold piece of the puzzle falling into place. I think they are planning to have me declared incompetent. I think they believe I'm a lonely old fool with a house worth $1 million and a pension, and they want to take it. I think this fake wedding date was step one. They'll use it as proof that I'm losing my mind. They'll say I forgot my own son's wedding. Victor stared at me, his face pale with rage. They are going to try to put you under a conservatorship. That's the play I confirmed. They think I'm a pawn. They don't know I'm the king. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to get me appointments with 3 of the top neurologists and psychiatrists in San Francisco. I want a full cognitive evaluation. I want 3 signed notarized affidavits stating that I am of sound mind and body. I want them on my desk before Marcus gets back from Tahiti. I'll schedule them for this week, Victor said, his voice grim. Good, I said, standing up. I walked to the window and looked down at the city. They are on their honeymoon. They think they've won. They think the simple old man is back in his cozy house, confused and heartbroken. Let them have their vacation. I turned to face my friend because when they get back, we're going to be ready. We're not just going to defend, we're going to attack. Victor nodded, a small, cold smile playing on his lips. This is going to be a very expensive lesson for them, Eli. Yes, I said. It is. They wanted a return on their investment. Well, I'm about to give it to them. It was Tuesday morning, 8:00 a.m. The California sun was streaming into my penthouse study, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. The city below was a distant hum. I had been up since 500. I had already met with 2 of the 3 psychiatrists Victor had scheduled. 2 signed affidavit attesting to my sound mind were already sitting on my desk. I was waiting. At 8 on the dot, Victor walked in. He didn't knock. He hadn't knocked in 40 years. He looked tired, but his eyes were sharp electric with the cold fury that I too was feeling. He was holding a single thin gray binder. It was stamped with one word, Global Intelligence Firm. Eli, he said, his voice a low gravel. He didn't bother with greetings. He sat in the leather chair opposite my desk. The preliminary report is in. Phase 1 is complete. I leaned back in my chair. I steepled my fingers. I waited. I was no longer the heartbroken father on the sidewalk. I was the chairman. This was a damage report. Victor opened the binder. You asked about the $30,000. The loan. I remember. I said it was a check from your Hillcrest Credit Union account. Victor said, reading from the first page. You handed it to Marcus at approximately 8:15 p.m. 4 months ago. He cashed it. He paused. At 10:04 a.m. the following morning. I nodded. No wasted time, not even a day of false gratitude. He had run straight to the bank. Go on. It was not deposited into his personal account. Eli. It was not deposited into a joint account. It was deposited directly in its entirety into a checking account belonging solely to Lauren Kensington. My son, my only son, had taken my money, the money Evelyn and I had saved, and handed it directly to her like a tribute and offering to his new queen. She didn't wait either, Victor said, his voice laced with contempt. The global intelligence firm team tracked the outflow. The money didn't sit in her account for more than an hour. The $30,000 was gone by noon that same day. I pictured them. Marcus smiling, relieved, thinking he had solved his problem, and Lauren sitting at her laptop, her eyes gleaming, finally getting her hands on what she believed was the first taste of my hidden savings. "Where did it go, Victor?" I asked. My voice was perfectly flat. Victor turned the page. The first transaction made at 10:17 a.m. was an electronic payment of $11,070. He looked up at me. To Premium Credit Services, $10,800. He had told me he was struggling. He had told me it was a bridge loan. He was drowning in debt he had never mentioned. It was her card, Eli, not his. We pulled the statements. Victor pushed a sheath of papers across the desk. The outstanding balance was for charges made in the 90 days prior to Marcus's visit. High-end department store, a weekend trip to tropical resort for a pre-wedding getaway, a wellness and rejuvenation package at the luxury hotel spa. My $30,000, my hard-earned money. Evelyn's legacy. It was paying for facials. It was paying for resort wear for a woman who despised me. Victor continued, his voice a relentless monotone. Second transaction. 10:19 a.m. $700 wired to luxury department store. The wedding dress. I said the words tasting like ash. Victor let out a short, harsh laugh. No, the wedding dress was supposedly a family heirloom from her mother. We're checking on that. This Eli, this was for accessories. A pair of designer shoes, a designer handbag, a full set of luxury luggage. She had used my money to buy the very armor of wealth she wore to look down on me. She was financing her performance of superiority with my own bank account. That accounts for $18,270, I said, doing the math in my head. What about the rest? The rest, Victor said, is the real insult. He tapped the paper. $11,730. Transferred directly to Marcus's personal account. To pay the Oakwood Country Club, I asked. The deposit. No, Victor said, shaking his head. Well, get to the club later. This money, $6,000 of it, was used that same afternoon to purchase 2 first-class non-refundable tickets to Tahiti. I stared at him. The honeymoon Eli, the one her rich father-in-law was supposedly paying for the one my son hung up on me to go on, he paid for it with my own money. So when I was standing on that dark sidewalk, humiliated, holding a $1.5 million check, they were at Metro Airport waiting to board a flight that I had paid for. The audacity of it, the sheer naked, breathtaking arrogance. And the last $5,730 I asked. Cash withdrawal. Victor said at an ATM at Metro Airport Terminal B right before they boarded, spending money for the trip. Victor closed the binder. The snap of the rings echoed in the silent room. So to summarize, of the $30,000 you lent your son for a venue deposit, 0 went to a venue. It all went to paying off his fiance's luxury debts and funding the honeymoon they both lied to you about. They took your money, Eli. They took it, and they were laughing at you from 30,000 feet. Victor was finished. He leaned back. He was waiting for me to explode. He was waiting for me to curse my son's name, but the rage didn't come. It was something else. It was disappointment. It was a profound, sinking, heavy disappointment. It was cold. It wasn't the theft that hurt. $30,000. To me, that was a rounding error. It was the lie. It was the manipulation. It was the complete and utter lack of character. He had sworn on his mother's memory, and he had used the money to buy his wife new shoes. I had hoped, even after the fake wedding date, that maybe Marcus was just weak-trapped, confused. But this report showed something else. This wasn't weakness. This was complicity. This was partnership. He wasn't trapped. He was a willing participant in his own corruption. I looked at Victor. He's not his mother's son. No, Eli. Victor said softly. He's her husband. I took a deep breath. The sadness settled and the coldness returned. The chairman was back in the chair. What's next, Victor? I asked. You said this was the preliminary report. Show me the rest. Victor's face hardened. He looked up from the papers detailing the $30,000 theft, and his eyes met mine. Eli, the $30,000. That was just an appetizer, he said, his voice dropping an octave. It's where this stops being pathetic and starts getting organized. He didn't turn the page in the binder. He closed it. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a second, thicker folder. This one was labeled simply Harrington, Reginald, and Victoria. You asked about the private fund Marcus mentioned. You asked about Lauren's lineage. I said nothing. I just waited. I did what you asked Victor said. I put the global intelligence firm team on them. Full financial and personal background. Eli. It's a house of cards. The whole thing is a lie. He slid a photograph across the polished mahogany. It was a stunning, sprawling, cedar-shingled mansion set against the water. Let's start with the summer home in the Cape Cod, Victor said. The one Lauren mentioned her mother's family owned. I remembered that first dinner, that casual, arrogant little drop of information. My mother's side, the Cape Cod. It was the first stone she had laid in the foundation of her superiority. This is the house, Victor said. Bay Harbor estimated worth $10 million. Impressive, I said. It is, Victor agreed. It belongs to Lauren's uncle, her mother's brother, Edward Langley. He's a legitimate real estate mogul in New York. And according to the global intelligence firm team who spoke to his attorney, Reginald and Victoria Harrington haven't been invited there in over a decade. He apparently refers to them as the locusts. The first brick crumbled, a borrowed piece of someone else's life presented as her own. So the mother's side is a fabrication, I said. What about the father, Reginald, the private equity man? Ah, yes, Victor said, a dark amusement in his voice. Reginald Harrington, the man Marcus was so impressed by. Victor opened the new folder. Reginald did run a fund, Harrington Capital Partners. It was registered in Wyoming in 2005. It had a good 3-year run leveraging commercial real estate in Nevada and Colorado. But he was sloppy. Eli, he was all flash, no foundation. He over-leveraged, got caught in a bad market dip, and tried to double down. Victor tapped the paper. He was wiped out completely. Harrington Capital Partners was formally dissolved in 2015. It's defunct, insolvent. He slid another document across the desk. It was a public record. He filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy 2 years ago. Eli. They lost everything. The house in Westport, the cars, everything. The air in the penthouse study felt thin. This wasn't just not rich. This was a spectacular, devastating failure. But the suits, I said, thinking of their immaculate presentation, the talk of standards, the Oakwood Country Club. A performance, Victor said, his voice hard. The most desperate performance of their lives. They've been living on high-interest, unsecured credit ever since. They are kiting checks, Eli moving money between accounts just to stay afloat. The global intelligence firm report estimates their personal debt at just over $300,000. I saw it all clearly now. The condescending looks, the pity for my simple life. It was all a projection. They were the ones who were terrified. They were the ones who were poor. So Marcus, I said, the pieces clicking into place, he didn't marry into wealth. He married into a fraud. It's worse than that, Eli. Victor leaned forward, and the last shred of humor left his face. They weren't just pretending for Marcus, they were targeting him. Or more specifically, they were targeting you. He turned the page. The team pulled their electronic records. 2 weeks after Lauren met Marcus, her parents ran a full background check on him. They were disappointed. He was just a mid-level manager with a modest salary. So why pursue him? I asked. Because Victor said they also ran a check on you. My heart went still. What did they find? Victor almost smiled. Nothing. That's the beauty of how we structured this. Eli, your name isn't on the EH masthead. Your assets are firewalled in nested trusts. All they saw was exactly what you wanted them to see. Elijah Harper, retired postal worker, widower, hour owner of a single paid-off property in Hillcrest, a modest fixed pension. I was confused. So if they thought I was poor, why the long con? Why the wedding? Eli Victor said, his voice soft. Don't think like a billionaire. Think like a desperate bankrupt con man. That simple house in Hillcrest. In this current San Francisco market, it has an estimated value of $1.2 million. And to them, $1.2 million is not modest. It's a jackpot. It's the score they've been waiting for. It hit me. It hit me like a physical blow. They didn't think I was rich. Eli. Victor continued driving the point home. They thought you were the perfect target. A lonely, trusting old man getting on in years, sitting on a single valuable liquid asset with a weak, easily manipulated son as the sole heir. The puzzle was complete. The visits, the talk of downsizing, the condescension, the casual cruelty. It was all designed to isolate me, to make Marcus see me as a burden, the fake wedding date. That wasn't just to avoid embarrassment. It was to create an incident, a moment they could point to. They weren't trying to marry into money. I whispered the full, sickening scope of the plan laid bare. They were trying to steal an inheritance. My inheritance. My home. Evelyn's home. That was the plan. Victor confirmed. The wedding was phase 1. Get Marcus legally tied to Lauren and her family. Phase 2 was to isolate you. Phase 3 would be to get you out of that house either by convincing you or by other means. And the $30,000 I gave them. That was just a bonus, Victor said. A little cherry on top, an unexpected investment from the target himself. They must have laughed all the way to Tahiti. They used your money to pay for the honeymoon they were taking after deliberately excluding you from the wedding. I stood up. I walked to the vast window looking down at the city but seeing nothing. My son wasn't just blinded by love. He wasn't just weak. He was an active participant in a long-term calculated con against his own father. He and his new wife and her bankrupt, fraudulent parents. They were a pack of jackals circling, waiting for me to die, or worse, waiting to make me disposable. I turned back to Victor. The disappointment was gone. The sadness had burned away, leaving something cold and hard in its place. Victor, I said. My voice was ice. What else? Victor stared at me. His face was a mask of controlled fury. He was a man who lived in a world of contracts, numbers, and leverage. What he was about to tell me was outside that world. It was something personal, something ugly. Eli, he said, and his voice was quieter now, which always meant he was more dangerous. The 30,000 was the how. The Harrington fraud was the why. This, he paused, tapping a third very thin manila folder he had placed on the desk. This is the what's next. He slid the folder toward me. It wasn't a global intelligence firm report. It was just a few pages printed from a web browser. They're stupid, Eli. They're arrogant, and they're stupid. They use their home internet, the same IP address they used to book their fake honeymoon. The global intelligence firm team pulled their complete search history and their email backups from the last 6 months. My heart didn't pound. It just stopped. This was it. This was the answer. Why, Victor, I whispered. Why the lie about the wedding? Because Victor said you were right. You said it yourself. They were building a case. He turned the first page over for me to read. It was a printout of an email from Lauren Kensington to Marcus Harper. The subject line read, "The future Marcus Darling," it said. "We need to talk about your father. I am truly, truly worried about him." I looked at Victor. This was sent 3 months ago. He said, "The day after you told them you weren't interested in selling the Hillcrest house." I read on. He's clearly not managing well on his own. He's isolated. He's forgetting things. He told me that story about his time in the Army again. He's clearly showing signs of cognitive decline. My parents and we just think it's irresponsible to let him manage an asset like that house when he's not in his right mind. I looked up, my blood running cold. Victor. I was never in the Army. I know, Victor said grimly. I told you she's a viper. She was inventing symptoms. She was manufacturing a false history of dementia and feeding it to your son. I turned the page. Marcus's reply. Lauren. I don't know. He seems fine to me. He's just old. He's always been quiet. And her response sent 10 minutes later. A response that sealed my son's fate. Quiet or confused, Marcus? He almost called me Evelyn yesterday. He is clearly living in the past. This isn't a joke. This is his safety. If he's this confused, he could be a danger to himself. He could fall. He could leave the stove on. He could give all his money away to a scammer. Her words leaped off the page. We need to protect him. We need to step in and manage his affairs before he loses that house to some telemarketer. My father knows a lawyer, a specialist in elder care. I gripped the armrests of my chair. I never once called her Evelyn. She was building a narrative, Eli Victor said, and your son was buying it, or at least he was letting himself be convinced. He pushed the next page toward me. Now, look at this. Their search history from their home computer starting 3 months ago. I read the list. Each line item was a nail in my son's coffin. 9:30 p.m. How to get power of attorney for elderly parent in California. 9:37 p.m. Signs of early onset dementia versus normal aging. 9:45 p.m. Legal definition of mentally incompetent. California. 10:02 p.m. What is a conservatorship? 10:15 p.m. How to prove a parent is a danger to themselves. 10:30 p.m. Quickest way to gain control of elderly parents' assets. 10:45 p.m. Can a conservator sell a parent's house? I put the paper down. I had to. My hands were shaking. This was not greed. Greed I understood. I had built an empire negotiating with greedy men. Greed is simple. Greed is a business transaction. This was evil. This was a plan to put me in a cage, to strip me of my name, my mind, my freedom, to take my house, Evelyn's house, and sell it. To lock me in a home where I would be fed pills by some stranger until I actually became the confused old man they were pretending I was. This was not theft. This was murder of the soul. And my son Marcus, he was a part of it. Eli Victor said, his voice soft but heavy. There's one more. The last email from Lauren to Marcus. 4 weeks ago, the day after he texted you the fake wedding details. I steeled myself and picked it up. The subject line read, Step 1. It's done. Lauren wrote, he has the wrong date in the wrong place. This is the big one, honey. When he misses the wedding, it's the proof we need. It's not just forgetting keys. This is a major undeniable cognitive failure. He'll call confused and upset. When he does, you just be so sorry, so concerned. Tell him he must have gotten it wrong. We'll use this as the primary incident when we file the petition. No judge will ignore a man forgetting his only son's wedding. This is it. We're finally going to save him from himself, and we'll finally be able to solve our problems. I dropped the paper. It fluttered to the mahogany floor. The fake date, the fake restaurant, the typo. It was all a calculated performance, a setup. They were counting on me to call confused. They were hoping I would sound lost and old. They were building their case. They had weaponized my love for my son against me. They had turned his wedding day into the first exhibit in a court case designed to destroy me. They set me up, I whispered. Yes, Victor said. They manufactured incident number 1. They were going to let you sit in that dark restaurant heartbroken. They were going to let you feel the humiliation, and they were going to use that humiliation as a legal weapon. I stood up. I walked to the vast window. I looked down at the city, at the tiny, insignificant cars moving below. They thought I was one of them, a speck of dust, a confused old man with a modest pension and a house that was ripe for the picking. They had no idea who they were dealing with. They had no idea the power they were trying to poke. The heartbreak I'd felt on that sidewalk was gone. The disappointment I'd felt over the $30,000 was gone. All of it was gone, burned away by a clean, cold, righteous fury. This was not a family matter. This was a hostile takeover, and I was about to mount a defense that would liquidate their entire company. I turned back to Victor. The father was gone. The chairman was in the room. They're on their honeymoon, I said in Tahiti on my money. 8 days, Victor confirmed. Their flight lands at Metro Airport on the 19th. Good. I said, that gives us time to work. They want to prove I'm confused. They want to prove I'm losing my mind. They think I'm a lonely, vulnerable old man. Victor watched me, a slow, predatory smile spreading across his face. He knew this side of me. He had seen it destroy competitors worth billions. What's the play, Eli? The play, I said, is that they are absolutely right. I am a confused old man. I'm devastated that I missed the wedding. I'm so heartbroken and foggy. I can't even remember what I did with their wedding gift. Victor's smile widened. The $1.5 million check. What check? I said, my voice suddenly frail, confused. I had a check. I don't remember. Was it 1/500 or was it 1.5 million? Oh dear, my memory is it's just so foggy these days. I met my oldest friend's gaze. I'm going to need you to spread a rumor, Victor. I need you to call that loud-mouthed cousin of mine, Beatrice, the one who repeats everything. Victor was already dialing. What should I tell her? Eli, you tell her. I said that you're worried about me, that I'm not myself, that I'm rambling about missing the wedding and losing a very large wedding check, a life-changing amount of money. Tell her I keep patting my pocket saying, I've lost it all. Oh, this is good, Victor chuckled. They're hunting a wounded animal, I said. Let's show them exactly where to find the bait. And Victor, get Dr. Alvarez and Dr. Patel on the line. I need those final 2 cognitive evaluations on my desk by Friday. I want them notarized in triplicate. I sat back down at my desk. The jackals thought the lion was dying. It was time to remind them why I was king. I spent the next 4 days methodically, clinically dismantling my life, or at least the life my son thought I had. Victor and I sat in his office, not the grand boardroom, but his private study on the 60th floor, surrounded by legal books and art from his travels. A stack of freshly printed documents sat between us. First Dick, Victor said, sliding a thick document toward me. The Hillcrest house, Evelyn's house. I picked up my pen. It was a blank, heavy and cold in my hand. This was she, Victor explained, is the final deed of transfer. It moves the property from Elijah Harper Individual into the Sophia Harper Irrevocable Education Trust. Effective immediately, you and I are the sole administrators. Marcus Harper and Lauren Kensington are explicitly barred from using the property as collateral residence or from receiving any proceeds from its potential sale. I signed my name Elijah Harper, a simple signature that undid 40 years of inheritance. It was done. Evelyn's house was safe. Sophia's future was safe from her own father. Next, Victor said, sliding a much thinner document over the $30,000 loan. I looked at it. It was a formal promissory note, a demand for immediate repayment. It details the check number, the date it was cashed, and the account it was deposited into Lauren's. Victor said it has a standard interest clause of 7% retroactive to the date of the loan. It is legally ironclad. He'll ignore it, I said. He'll say I was confused when I gave it to him. Let him. Victor smiled a cold, thin smile. It's not for him. It's for the court. This is Exhibit A in our fraud case. Sign it. I signed it. Finally, Victor said, handing me 3 identical folders. Your cognitive evaluations. Dr. Alvarez, Dr. Patel, and Dr. Ramirez. All 3 find you in the 99th percentile for cognitive function for a man of your age. They state, and I quote, Mr. Harper's recall reasoning and financial acumen are exceptionally sharp. Each copy is notarized. I tapped the folders. Good. Put them in the vault. We won't need them until the performance. With the paperwork signed, the armor was in place. Now it was time to set the trap. I picked up my Postman phone, the simple flip phone Marcus knew. I looked at Victor. Ready. Let's go fishing, Eli, he said. I dialed a number I knew by heart. My cousin Beatrice. A good woman, but a woman who believed information was a currency meant to be spent, and she spent it liberally. She loved gossip more than she loved breathing. Beatrice, it's Elijah. Yes, it's been a while. I put the phone on speaker. I hunched my shoulders. I let my voice crack. I became the man they thought I was. Beatrice, I don't know who to talk to. I'm so terribly upset. Elijah, what is it, honey? You sound awful. Is it Marcus? Is he okay? It's the wedding, I said, letting a small sob catch in my throat. Beatrice, I missed it. I missed my own son's wedding. You what? Her voice went up an octave. The bait was in the water. Marcus, he told me it was Friday. I'm sure he did, but he says it was Thursday. He says I must have gotten confused. He says I'm getting forgetful. Oh, Lord, have mercy, Elijah. You forgot his wedding. I don't think I forgot. I said, my voice rising in false panic. But maybe I did. My mind, it's just so foggy lately. And Beatrice. That's not the worst part. What's worse than that child? The gift, I whispered, as if I were afraid of being overheard. I went to the bank. I took out a check. A big one. I wanted to surprise him. Set him up for life. You know, a big check. How big, Elijah? I I can't even remember. Beatrice. That's the problem. Was it 1/500 or was it 1.5 million? I can't find it. I had it in my suit. I'm sure I did, but now it's gone. What if I threw it away? What if someone stole it? $1.5 million. Victor was covering his mouth, his shoulders shaking with silent laughter. 1.5 million. Beatrice shrieked, Elijah Harper, you call the police, you call the bank, you lost a $1.5 million check. I can't, I cried. Marcus, he'll be so angry. He's on his honeymoon. Oh, Beatrice, I think I've ruined everything. I'm just an old fool, a confused old fool. I hung up the phone, my performance complete. Victor and I sat in silence for a moment. She'll call her daughter first, Victor calculated. Her daughter will post it on Facebook. Marcus's cousin Leonard follows her. He'll see it. He'll text Marcus in Tahiti. How long do you give it? I asked. Before they cut their trip short, Victor checked his watch. I give them 10 hours. He was wrong. It took 6. Victor's private phone rang at 5:00 a.m. the next morning. It was the global intelligence firm team leader stationed in Caribbean. Mr. Ellis Target is on the move. Mr. and Mrs. Harper just checked out of the luxury resort. They've chartered a private seaplane to Maine Port. They're booked on the first commercial flight back to San Francisco. They'll land at Metro Airport at 6:00 p.m. tomorrow. They look agitated. Victor hung up and called me. They took the bait. Eli, they're coming home. I was sitting in my penthouse watching the sunrise. They're coming home to hunt a wounded animal. I said they think they're coming to take control of a senile old man's $1.2 million house. They have no idea I said that they're really coming to try and claim a $1.5 million check. They're about to expose just how greedy they really are. The trap was set. The bait was out. The jackals were on the plane. All I had to do now was go back to Hillcrest, put on my old sweater, and wait in my cozy little house, ready to play the part of a confused, broken, and very vulnerable old man. I was in the armchair when they arrived, the one Evelyn had covered in that soft, worn chenille. I had the lights in the living room turned down low, just a single dim yellow lamp by my side. I had a copy of Community magazine from 1990 on my lap upside down. I'd practiced my breathing slow, a little shallow. I was the very picture of a man fading away. I heard the key scrape in the lock. Marcus still had his key. The door flew open, hitting the wall with a bang that made me jump, which was perfect. Dad. Dad, are you here? Are you okay? Marcus rushed in first, his face a mask of practiced theatrical worry. He was still tan from Tahiti. He wore linen pants and an expensive unbuttoned shirt. He looked like a tourist. He stopped when he saw me, his eyes quickly scanning the dim room before landing on me. Dad, he breathed, rushing over to kneel at my feet. Oh my God, you're just sitting in the dark. We were so worried. He grabbed my hand. His was clammy despite the tan. Lauren glided in behind him. She was a vision in white linen, her blonde hair pulled back. She held a large, expensive straw bag. She didn't rush. She stood in the doorway, her arms crossed, her eyes doing the real work. She scanned the room, her gaze sharp assessing. She was looking for signs. She was hunting. Marcus' son, I said, blinking slowly as if pulling myself up from a deep fog. You're back. What happened? Your honeymoon. We cut it short. Dad? Marcus said, his voice dripping with false empathy. He squeezed my hand. We couldn't relax, not after we heard. We got a call from cousin Beatrice. She said you weren't well, Dad, that you were confused. Lauren finally moved, gliding forward, her face now arranged in a look of profound, gentle concern. It was a masterpiece of acting. Elijah, she said, her voice a soft, sympathetic coo. We are so sorry about the wedding. It was all just a terrible, terrible mix-up with the invitations. We feel just awful. I looked up at her, letting my eyes seem watery and unfocused. You do? Of course, she said, patting my shoulder. But Elijah Beatrice said something else. She said you were very upset that you thought you'd lost something. I flinched. I looked away from her toward the cold fireplace as if in deep shame. I don't know what she's talking about. I'm just tired. Dad, Marcus cut in. His impatience was a sharp blade under the velvet of his concern. Dad, listen to me. Beatrice said you lost something important. She said you kept rambling about a gift to check. I squeezed my eyes shut. I put my hand to my temple. Oh, I whispered, that it's all so foggy. My mind, it just hasn't been right since that night. I missed it. I let my voice crack. I missed my son's wedding. I went to the wrong place. We know Dad. We know, Marcus said, patting my knee. His eyes, however, were not kind. They were sharp. They were hungry. But this check, Dad, let's focus on the check. We need to help you. Did you write a check? I looked up, my eyes wide with what I hoped looked like dawning horror. Yes. Yes, a check. A wedding gift. I had it in my suit pocket. The good one. The tailored suit. Lauren's eyes flashed. I saw it. The name registered. Tailored suit. A postman in a tailored suit. The first crack in their narrative. She filed it away, but the greed was stronger. I went to the restaurant. I continued, my voice frail. The dark restaurant. And I was so upset. I came home and the envelope, it was gone. Just gone. Gone. Lauren's voice was a sharp squeak. She forgot to sound sympathetic. You mean you lost it? You just lost it. I think so, I said, wringing my hands. I'm so stupid. I'm so old and stupid. No, Elijah, you're not stupid, Lauren said, her voice sliding back into its silken sheath. She knelt next to Marcus, putting her perfectly manicured hand on my other arm. They were on either side of me, a two-person cage. We just need to help you retrace your steps. This check, it's vital we know the amount so we can, cancel it with the bank. Yes, Marcus said, a little too quickly. The amount Dad tried to remember for the bank? How much was it? This was the moment. The hook, the line, the sinker. I looked up, my eyes wide, and lost the amount. Oh dear, that's the worst part. I can't quite. It was a lot. I'd been saving for so long. I wanted to set you up for your new life. Lauren was barely breathing. She was leaning so close I could smell the faint scent of coconut from her sunscreen. How much Elijah tried to remember? Was it $8,000? I shook my head. My eyes squeezed shut. No more than that. 30,000. Marcus pushed his voice tight. I don't think so, I whispered. I think it started with a T or no wait. Was it 1,500? Lauren's face fell. I saw it. The mask slipped. The disappointment was so naked, so profound, it was almost comical. 1,500. All this for 1,500. No, wait, I said, my eyes flying open as if in a sudden painful jolt of memory. That's not right. One. Oh, Lord, I'm so confused. I think it was 1.5 million. The silence in the room was absolute. It was so quiet I could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Lauren made a small sound in the back of her throat, a gasp that was swallowed before it could become a scream. Marcus's hand, which was still on my knee, tightened like a vice. His knuckles went white. 1.5 million, he repeated. His voice was a strangled whisper. I think so, I said. I let the tears, real tears of rage, well up in my eyes. I think I lost a wallet. 5 million check. I've ruined everything. I'm just an old fool, Marcus, a confused old useless fool. I buried my face in my hands, sobbing, but I was sobbing to hide the smile. Through my fingers, I watched them. They weren't looking at me. They were looking at each other. The mask of concern was gone. The fake sympathy had evaporated. Their eyes were wide, blazing nakedly, terrifyingly alive with a greed so profound it was ecstatic. They weren't looking at a father. They weren't looking at a heartbroken old man. They were looking at a senile, walking, talking lottery ticket. Dad, Marcus said. His voice was trembling, but not with concern. It was trembling with adrenaline. Dad, it's okay. It's okay. Don't cry. Lauren was the first to recover. Her face smoothed, her eyes narrowed. She was calculating. Elijah, she said, her voice now a thick, heavy syrup of kindness. It's all right. This is not your fault. This just proves what we were worried about. She stroked my arm. You're clearly under too much stress. You can't be expected to manage things like this on your own. It's too much for you. But the money, I whimpered. 1.5 million. Shh, Marcus said, joining in. We'll find it, Dad. We'll search the house. We'll call the bank. We'll handle it. He looked at Lauren. A silent, perfect communication passed between them. We're home now, Marcus said, his voice full of a new, terrible strength. We're going to take care of you. From now on, we'll take care of everything. The trap was sprung. The jackals had just offered to guard the henhouse. They were taking care of me. Marcus's hand was a heavy proprietary weight on my arm. Lauren's fingers stroked my shoulder with a touch that felt like ice. They were kneeling, a perfect portrait of loving concern. But their eyes were shining. They were looking at each other over my head, their faces glowing with the ecstatic, terrible light of 1.5 million. Dad, Marcus said, his voice a thick, comforting syrup. You're so tired. You're so worried. Don't you think about that check? Don't you worry about a single thing. We're home now. We'll handle it all. But 1.5 million, I murmured, letting my voice crack and tremble. It was all I had saved for you, son. For you and for Sophia. I felt Lauren's fingers tighten on my shoulder. I saw her eyes narrow for just a fraction of a second. Sophia, my granddaughter. The trust fund I'd mentioned for her was not part of their plan. Shh, Elijah. She cooed, her smile snapping back into place. It's all right. We will find it. We just need to help you remember. And her voice was kind. The voice you use for a child or an idiot. Where were you before you went to the restaurant? The fake restaurant. The fake restaurant. I repeated, my eyes wide as if the concept was too complex. It was fake. No, Marcus said, shooting Lauren a look of pure, venomous fury. He was furious she'd let it slip. She means the restaurant you thought it was at. Dad, just think. Your suit. You said you had it in your suit. My suit, I repeated, grasping the word like a lifeline. Yes, my good suit. The tailored suit. Lauren's eye twitched again at the brand name. A postman in a tailored suit. The detail didn't fit her narrative, but the greed was stronger. I came home. I said, my voice distant, gazing at the cold fireplace. I was so sad, I took it off. I think I put it in the closet. Okay, Dad, Marcus said, standing up. He was vibrating with impatience. Okay, good. That's good. We'll look. I'll go check the closet right now. No, I said. I grabbed his wrist. My grip was sudden and stronger than a frail old man should be. They both froze. I saw their eyes meet again. He's stronger than he looks. I immediately let my hand fall away, making it tremble. No, I whispered, as if ashamed. I remember now. I didn't put it in the closet. I had it. I was angry. Angry. Lauren's voice was sharp, a scalpel. Why were you angry, Elijah? Because I said, letting the tears well up, the real tears of rage and humiliation. Because I missed it. I missed my son's wedding. I thought if I missed the wedding, you didn't need the gift. I thought it was all spoiled. Marcus's face went chalk white. Dad, what are you saying? What did you do? I didn't answer him. I just pointed a trembling finger toward the old mahogany desk where I kept my postman checkbook. I was sitting right there. I had the envelope in my hand. I was so confused. Elijah. Lauren said her voice was no longer a coup. It was a low, dangerous command. Where's the envelope? I pushed myself up from the armchair. A performance of frail, aching joints. I think I put it in the trash. The trash, Marcus yelped. He didn't walk. He sprinted. He dove into the kitchen. I heard the metal lid of the kitchen bin clang against the wall. I heard the frantic wet sound of him digging through the coffee grounds and vegetable peels. "It's not here," he screamed. His voice was a high-pitched panic. "Dad, the trash is empty. The garbage truck. It must have come this morning." Lauren's face collapsed. For one beautiful second, I saw the real her, a mask of pure reptilian rage. She looked at me, her mouth a thin white line. "You stupid old—" She began, her voice a low hiss. "No," I said, cutting her off. My timing perfect. "No, not the kitchen trash." I was at the desk. I used the small one. I pointed to the elegant leather-bound wastebasket next to my desk. They moved as one. It was a blur. They both lunged for it, nearly knocking each other over. Marcus got there first. He grabbed the small basket, upended it onto Evelyn's rug. A few crumpled receipts, a tissue, and nothing. It was empty. It's gone," Marcus whispered, staring at the small pile of trash. He looked at me, his eyes wild. "Dad, where is it?" "I don't know." I whimpered. Oh, wait." I shuffled over to my desk. I pulled open the top drawer, the one that was messy, the one full of old pens, paper clips, rubber bands. "I think I tore it up," I said, my voice barely audible. "But I didn't throw it away. I kept it right here." I reached into the back of the drawer and pulled out a small white envelope. They both stopped breathing. I opened the flap and poured the contents into my trembling palm. A small pile of confetti, blue and white high-security paper, the remains of $1.5 million. Marcus stared at my hand. Lauren just stared. I was just so upset. I whispered, my voice breaking with a perfect imitation of confused grief. "I just tore it up. I thought it was just junk mail, just little pieces." Lauren let out a sound. It was not a word. It was a high-pitched, strangled keening, like an animal caught in a trap. "You," she whispered, "you tore it. It was just a mistake." I whimpered, playing my role to the hilt. "It was just $1,500, wasn't it? I can write you another one. I have my checkbook." I began to shuffle back toward the desk. $1,500. Marcus's voice wasn't a whisper. It wasn't a question. It was a roar. It exploded out of him, a sound of such profound, agonizing loss that it rattled the photo frames on the mantel. 150. He screamed, his face turning a dark mottled purple. Lauren was on her knees, frantically snatching the pieces from the rug where I'd accidentally dropped them. Marcus, look," she shrieked, her voice cracking. This M. Marcus? He's right. Oh my God, look at the number." Marcus snatched the pieces from her. His hands were shaking so violently he could barely hold them. He held two of the scraps under the dim lamplight. I saw the piece he was holding. It had a 2 followed by 3 zeros and another piece right next to it with more zeros. "No," Marcus whispered. "No, no, no, no." He turned to me. His eyes were no longer filled with fake concern. They were the eyes of a wolf. He grabbed me by the shoulders of my old sweater, shoving me back. "Dad, what did you do?" "That wasn't 1,500. That was 1.5 million. You tore up 1.5 million. His shout echoed through the small, quiet house. Lauren just sank to the floor, not in a faint, in a boneless heap. 1.5 million. She was saying over and over again, her voice dead. He tore up 1.5 million. 1.5 million. I let my jaw drop. I looked at him, my eyes wide with a perfect mask of senile terror. 1.5 million, son. No, that can't be right. My checkbook, would never 1.5 million. I clutched my chest. Oh, my heart. I must have made a terrible mistake. A typo on the check. Oh, God. 1.5 million. My confession was the final nail. Marcus let go of me, shoving me back into the armchair. He was panning, his eyes wild. He looked at Lauren, who was still on the floor, rocking. He looked at the confetti in his hand. "He's lost it," Marcus said. His voice was flat dead. All the rage was gone, replaced by a terrifying cold resolution. "He's completely gone. He doesn't even know what he's doing." Lauren looked up at him. Her face was a terrifying tear-streaked mask of fury and sudden dawning opportunity. Yes? She whispered, a new sharp light coming into her eyes. Yes, he is. This is it, Marcus. This is exactly what the lawyer said we needed. This is the proof. Marcus nodded slowly. He looked at me. He was no longer seeing a father. He was seeing a broken vault, a senile, incompetent $1.5 million problem. It's okay, Dad, he said, his voice now chillingly calm, soothing. You just rest. Don't worry about the check. Lauren and I were going to make some calls. We're going to get you some help. They walked out of the living room, leaving me alone in the dim light. I heard them in the kitchen, their voices low, urgent, and angry. Call the lawyer now. I heard Lauren hiss. The hunt was over. The jackals were now moving in for the kill, and I had just given them the perfect reason to do it. I sat there in the dim light of Evelyn's armchair. I heard them. The kitchen was just down the hall, but their voices were no longer hushed, careful whispers. They were sharp. They were angry. He tore it up. Lauren hissed. Her voice was a low, violent vibration. He sat right in that chair, looked you in the eye, and tore up $1.5 million. That's senile, malicious. I cannot believe this. What do we do? Marcus's voice was high, panicked. What can we do? It's gone. He tore it up. He admitted it. My God. Lauren won $5 million. Stop panicking, Marcus, she snapped. Her voice turned cold. Precise, calculating. This doesn't change anything. It confirms everything. It's the proof. It's exactly the proof the lawyer said we needed. Proof of what? That he is mentally incompetent. That he cannot manage his own affairs. He is a danger to himself. He just destroyed a fortune. Marcus, call the lawyer. The one my father recommended. Call him now. Tell him the primary incident just happened. Tell him we're executing the plan. I heard the beep of a phone being unlocked. They weren't even trying to hide. They believed I was deaf as well as senile. They believed I was just a piece of furniture in the next room while they calmly, coldly decided my fate. The father in me, the one who had held Marcus's hand as he learned to walk, was dead. The chairman was listening, and he was pleased. The trap was sprung. They came back into the living room. The performance was over. Lauren's face was no longer soft with that fake, syrupy concern. It was a hard white mask of fury. Her eyes were like two blue chips of ice. Marcus stood behind her, his face pale, but his jaw was set. He had made his choice. Elijah, she said. Not Dad, not Mr. Harper. I flinched, playing my part. I looked up as if startled from a nap. Lauren, dear, is everything all right? Did you find the pieces? I'm so sorry. Stop it. She spat. The mask was gone. Just stop it. Stop playing stupid. You know what you did? You tore up our future. You tore up Sophia's future. Lauren, Marcus said, grabbing her arm. Not like this. We agreed. We're doing this to help him. No, she said, shaking his arm off. I'm done helping. I am done being polite. I have been patient. I have coddled this postman for 3 years waiting for you to handle it, and now he burns $1.5 million in a wastebasket because he's foggy. She was pacing now, a caged animal. This ends today. I watched her, the real her. The Cape Cod lineage and the private equity father were all just cheap costumes. This was the truth. This was the gutter she had crawled out of. Lauren, I whispered, my voice trembling. I don't understand. I said I was sorry. It was a mistake. I thought it was 1,500. Marcus stepped forward. He put his hands on his hips. He was no longer my son. He was her husband. He was her accomplice. Dad, bow. He said, his voice was cold, devoid of all emotion. Lauren is... She's just upset. We are both upset. But she is right. This incident with the check, it's the final straw. Final straw. I repeated, my voice small. We've been worried about you for months, Dad, he said, weaving the narrative I had so carefully fed him. Ever since you started forgetting things, the mist wedding, that was the big one. We thought we could manage it. We thought we could help you, but this, he gestured wildly at the desk, at the confetti on the floor, tearing up $1.5 million. You're a danger to yourself. You're a danger to your own finances. He was pacing now just like her. What if you'd done that with the house, Dad? What if you'd forgotten and signed the deed over to some telemarketer? You could lose everything. Lauren crossed her arms, a smug, cold look of victory on her face. He's right, Elijah. You need supervision. You need professional help. You cannot be trusted with your own money anymore. You just proved it. I looked from her face to his. Marcus, supervision. What are you saying? This is my house. It is your house, Dad. Marcus said, his voice hard. And it's a $2 million asset, and you're treating it and your money like scrap paper. He stopped pacing. He stood directly in front of me, forcing me to look up at him. His eyes were cold, empty. All the warmth Evelyn and I had poured into him for 40 years. It was gone. Lauren and I, we spoke to a lawyer weeks ago. Weeks ago. The lie about the private fund was still fresh, but they had been planning this for weeks. We were hoping, he continued, that we wouldn't have to do this. We were hoping you'd cooperate, that you'd see reason, but after this you forced our hand. Do what I whispered. We are filing a petition for conservatorship. Marcus said the words dropping like stones in the quiet room. Effective immediately. We are taking control of your affairs. Lauren stepped forward, adding the final killing blow. It's to protect you, Elijah. We will manage your assets. We will, of course, sell this house. It's far too large for you, and we will use the money to move you into a wonderful facility, a secure place. She smiled. With people your own age, where you can be monitored, where you can't hurt yourself anymore. A facility, a home. They were going to sell Evelyn's house, my house, and lock me away all for money. A home, I said, my voice breaking. You're putting me in a home. Marcus couldn't look at me. He stared at the wall over my head. It's the only way, Dad. It's for your own good. We're taking over. The lawyer is drawing up the papers as we speak. He'll be here tomorrow with the petition. It's done. They stood there triumphant. The jackals. They just cornered the old lion. They thought the fight was over. They thought they'd won. I let the silence sit. I let them enjoy their victory for a long, cold moment. I looked at my son, the boy I raised, now a stranger. I looked at the viper he married. I let my body tremble. I looked up, my eyes wide and full of fear. A lawyer tomorrow, I said, my voice a frail whisper. Oh dear, that's so sudden. I guess I should call my lawyer too then. Lauren actually laughed, a short, ugly barking sound. Your lawyer. What lawyer? Elijah, the guy who wrote your 2000 will. He's probably dead, just like your mind. It doesn't matter who you call. It's done. We're in charge now. I nodded slowly. I looked down at my hands. Oh, he's not dead, I whispered as if to myself. No, he's very much alive. He's very good. I should call him. I should call Victor. Marcus frowned. Victor. Who's Victor? Victor. James Ellis, I said, still whispering. My old friend. He handles my paperwork. I think I should call him. Lauren rolled her eyes and turned away, dismissing me. Call whoever you want, old man. It won't change a thing. Call whoever you want, old man. Lauren scoffed. She turned her back on me, a gesture of pure final dismissal. It won't change a thing. Marcus, let's go to the kitchen. We need to call my father and tell him the good news. He'll be so relieved we're finally handling this. Good news? I whimpered, the tremor in my voice perfectly rehearsed, putting me in a home. It's good news for us, Elijah, she said without even looking back. It means we can finally move forward. Marcus hesitated. He looked at me, his face a mask of conflict. I saw a flicker of something. Guilt, pity. It didn't matter. It was too weak. He turned and followed his wife. Lauren, wait. At that exact moment, the doorbell rang. It wasn't a gentle knock. It was a sharp, clean, authoritative chime. Marcus and Lauren froze in the hallway. Who is that? Lauren snapped, clearly irritated by the interruption to her victory. Are you expecting someone? I blinked, my confused mask firmly in place. Oh, I don't think so. Unless that's Victor. Oh dear, I did call him. I think I told him I was in trouble. He gets so worried. You called, your friend, Marcus said, exasperated. Dad, we're handling this. You can't just call. God, he's probably some other old man from the post office. Just stay there. I'll get rid of him. The doorbell rang again. 2 sharp chimes. Ding dong, ding dong. Impatient. Marcus marched to the front door and pulled it open. I was facing the hallway. I couldn't see the person on the porch, but I could see my son's reaction. He just froze. He didn't speak. He just stood there, his hands still on the door knob. A deep, rich voice, smooth as polished granite, filled the house. A voice that commanded a room just by existing. Marcus Harper. Yes. Marcus stammered, looking up. Move. It wasn't a request. It was an order. A man stepped past Marcus, brushing his shoulder, moving him aside as if he were a piece of furniture. Marcus just stood there, pushed aside, his mouth slightly open. The man who entered my living room was my age 67, but he stood 6'3" ramrod straight. He was wearing a dark 3-piece pinstriped suit that I knew for a fact was handmade on Savile Row. He was black, his hair a perfect close-cropped silver. He held a thick alligator skin briefcase in one hand. His eyes, sharp and assessing, swept the room in a single dismissive glance. He took in the cozy furniture. He registered Lauren, who was standing in the kitchen doorway, her arms crossed. He ignored her completely. His gaze landed on me, still cowering in the armchair. Instantly, the hard corporate mask on his face melted into one of genuine, warm concern. He walked right past Marcus and Lauren. He knelt by my chair just as Marcus had done an hour before, but there was no acting in it. This was real. Eli, he said, his voice now full of a deep, resonant warmth. He took my hand in both of his. I came as soon as I got your message. Are you all right? Did they touch you, Victor? I whispered, letting a tear, a real one this time, roll down my cheek. So glad you're here. They're scaring me. They said they're putting me in a home. Victor's head snapped up. He looked at Marcus and Lauren. The warmth was gone. His eyes were not just cold, they were arctic. What? He said, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. Did you say to him, Lauren, who was used to being the most intimidating person in any room, found her footing? She stepped forward, trying to reclaim her dominance. I don't know who you are, she said, her voice dripping with disdain. But this is a private family matter. You need to leave. A family matter, Victor repeated as if tasting a foul word. He stood up slowly, rising to his full imposing height. He seemed to fill the small room. He looked down at Lauren, and for the first time I saw her actually take a step back. This, Victor said, stopped being a family matter the moment you decided to commit conspiracy to defraud. This is now a legal matter. Conspiracy. Marcus finally found his voice high and ready. Who are you? We're trying to help my father. He's not well. He just tore up a $1.5 million check. Victor actually smiled. It was not a kind expression. He told you about the check, Victor said, glancing at me with something like admiration. Oh, Eli, you're better than I thought. You baited the trap perfectly. What Marcus said, his face a mask of confusion. He tore it up because he's senile. Lauren shouted, her voice shrill. He's incompetent. He just admitted it. Incompetent, Victor said. He walked over to my desk, placed his alligator briefcase on the polished wood, and clicked the heavy brass latches. Snap, snap. That is a very specific, very dangerous legal term, young lady. A term that carries penalties for false filing. You'd better be able to back it up. He pulled out 3 thick-bound documents. These, he said, dropping them on the table. Thud thud are full cognitive and psychiatric evaluations from Dr. Alvarez of local university, Dr. Patel of Central Hospital, and Dr. Ramirez, the chief of geriatric psychology at National Medical Center, who was flown in privately 2 days ago. Marcus's face went slack. Flown in all 3, Victor continued state under oath that Mr. Elijah Harper is not only perfectly competent, but possesses a financial and strategic mind in the 99th percentile for any age group. So I ask you again, what was that you were saying about him being unwell? Lauren's face was white. Dr. Ramirez flown in. Who are you? How could you? Victor turned to Marcus. He ignored Lauren. He focused on my son. Marcus, he said, your father in his simple way. He forgot to introduce me. He reached into his breast pocket and pulled out a heavy cream-colored business card. He didn't hand it to Marcus. He flicked it. It spun through the air and landed perfectly on the coffee table in front of him. Marcus stared at it. Lauren, trembling, snatched it up. She read it aloud, her voice a strangled whisper. Victor James Ellis, Chairman and CEO, Ellis Harper Enterprises. She looked up, her eyes wide with a dawning, uncomprehending terror. Ellis Harper, as in EH Enterprises, the defense contractor. The one that's worth 400 million. Give or take a few million, Victor said, adjusting his cufflink. I'm Ellis. He pointed at me, still sitting in the armchair as Harper. I'm the CEO. He is the majority owner and the chairman of the board and my partner for 40 years. Lauren's hand went to her mouth. She looked at Marcus. Marcus just shook his head, a slow, disbelieving motion. He looked at me, at the man he thought he knew. The man in the old sweater, the man he'd just tried to have committed. Dad, he whispered. His voice was broken. Dad, what is he talking about? You're a postman. You worked at the post office. This was the moment I sat up. I let the frail, trembling, confused old man melt away like a snake shedding its skin. I straightened my back in Evelyn's chair. I looked my son in the eye. The fog was gone. My voice was no longer a whisper. It was the clear, cold, precise voice of the chairman. That was my day job, son, I said. It kept me honest. It kept me grounded. It reminded me what real work felt like in my hands. I stood up from the chair. I walked past him, past Lauren, and stood by the fireplace next to Evelyn's photograph. My real job, Marcus. My real job, the one you never bothered to ask about. The one that paid for the college you attended, the car you drove, the $30,000 you gave to this woman so she could buy shoes. I turned to face them. They looked so small, so stunned, so utterly hopelessly outmatched. My real job, I said, was building an empire that you just tried to steal from a confused old man. Marcus stumbled back and sank onto the sofa, his head in his hands. No, he was whispering over and over. No, this isn't. It can't be. Lauren, however, was already recovering. The shock was being replaced by her true nature. The viper was cornered, and she was preparing to strike. It's a lie, she shouted, pointing a trembling finger at Victor. He's lying. This is a trick. You're trying to cheat us. You're conspiring against us. Victor laughed, a deep, genuine, booming laugh that startled her. Catch you, ma'am. You came into this house, a house we hold the title to defraud a man who is personally worth more than your entire bankrupt family tree. You are a minnow attempting to swallow a whale. The time for tricks is over. Now we talk about consequences. Victor picked up his briefcase, walked over to me, and handed me the alligator skin case. I set it on the mantel and opened it. Marcus looked up, his face ashen. Dad, please. I didn't know. I just thought you were sick. That, I said, pulling out the first file, the global intelligence firm report, is the biggest lie of all. You did know. You knew I was your father, and that should have been enough. I threw the file onto the coffee table in front of him. It landed with a heavy final thud. Now, I said, let's talk about that $30,000 loan. Victor let out a long, slow breath. The sound was full of contempt. He looked at Lauren, who was still standing, her face a mask of white-hot rage and disbelief. So, Victor said, his voice casual as if discussing the weather, the petition for conservatorship is dead on arrival. Any lawyer who files it knowing these psychiatric evaluations exist would be facing disbarment. You will not touch Mr. Harper's mind. He then picked up the first document I had signed, the deed transfer. Now let's discuss the primary asset you were attempting to, as you said, manage this house. Marcus, who had been sitting like a stone on the sofa, finally looked up. His eyes were hollow. My mother's house, he whispered. No. Victor said, his voice sharp. Not anymore. As of 9:04 a.m. yesterday morning, this property, 41159 Hillcrest Drive, along with the land it sits on, was legally and irrevocably transferred. Lauren's head snapped toward him, her eyes wide with animal panic. Transferred to who? You? She was looking at Victor, thinking he had scammed me. She was looking for an angle, a way to turn this to me. Victor actually laughed. No, Ms. Kensington, not to me. Mr. Harper is far too intelligent for that. He transferred it into the Sophia Harper Irrevocable Education Trust. The name hung in the air. Sophia, my granddaughter. This house, Victor continued placing the document on the coffee table with a soft thud, now belongs to Mr. Harper's granddaughter. Its value will be used upon her majority for her education and her future. I am the trustee. Mr. Harper, he nodded at me, is the sole administrator. You, Marcus Harper, and you, Lauren Kensington, are explicitly barred from residing here. You are barred from using this property as collateral, and you are barred from receiving 1 single cent from its eventual sale. You have no claim, you have no rights, you have no standing. You gave it away. Marcus stammered, his voice cracking. You gave my inheritance to a child. I finally spoke. I hadn't moved from the fireplace. My voice was low, and it cut through the room like a cold wind. I did not give it away, Marcus. I secured it. I secured Evelyn's legacy. I secured it from you. I looked at Lauren, whose face was collapsing in on itself. You cannot sell my granddaughter's house to pay for your spa days, Lauren. You cannot leverage Evelyn's memory to buy new luggage. You. Lauren was trembling, her hands clenched at her sides. You bastard. You manipulative old bastard. You tricked us. No, I said I believed you. I believed you when you told me who you were. And now we move on to your finances. Victor did not miss a beat. He stepped forward again, the ringmaster of this execution. He turned his attention back to my son. Marcus, let's talk about the $30,000. The lone Marcus flinched. That was a family matter. He gave me that. It was a gift for the wedding, a wedding he wasn't invited to. Victor asked, his voice silky. A wedding you lied about? No, I don't think any court in the world would see that as a gift. Mr. Harper recalls it as a loan you promised to repay when the fund cleared. A loan. Victor's voice dropped. You swore on your mother's memory to return. I watched Marcus flinch, the color draining from his face. He remembered. Good. Victor slid the second thinner document onto the table. This is a legal formal demand for immediate repayment. $30,000 plus 7% compounded interest retroactive to the date the check was cashed by your wife. The total as of today is $32,086. It is due now. I can't. Marcus whispered, his eyes darting to Lauren. I don't have it. You know I don't have it. Oh, we know, Victor said. We know exactly where it went. Global intelligence firm is very, very good. $11.70 to premium credit services. Your wife's card, not yours. $7,200 to luxury department store. $6,000 for 2 first-class tickets to Tahiti, and $5,130 in cash from an ATM at the Metro Airport International Terminal. Victor leaned in. We have the timestamps, Marcus. You cashed your father's check and paid for your honeymoon in the same afternoon. Marcus looked at Lauren, a new sick horror dawning on his face. You told me your parents paid for the flights. You told me the luxury department store card was a wedding gift. Lauren was trapped. She didn't even look at him. She just stared at Victor, her eyes full of hate. It doesn't matter, she spat. We're married. It's our debt. My parents will help us. My father will handle this. He'll write a check. This is nothing to him. Your father, Victor said, as if savoring the words. Reginald Harrington, the private equity man. He opened the third thickest binder, the Global Intelligence Firm report. This, Victor said, is fascinating reading. Reginald Harrington filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy 24 months ago. Total outstanding liabilities, $329 or $600. He lost the house in Westport. He lost the cars. The private fund you mentioned, Marcus, it's a defunct LLC registered in Wyoming. Its last known bank balance was $2,560. He let that sink in. Your in-laws are frauds, Marcus. They are bankrupt. They are living on high-interest credit cards and fumes. They are con artists. That's a lie. Lauren lunged forward, trying to grab the report. My father is it. Victor didn't even flinch. He simply moved the binder out of her reach. Your father is a broke, desperate man who saw your husband as the heir to a $2 million house. He saw your father-in-law as a senile easy mark. You weren't merging families, Miss Kensington. You were attempting a hostile, fraudulent takeover of a man's life, and you failed. Lauren stumbled back as if she'd been struck. She sank onto the ottoman, her hands covering her face. She wasn't making a sound. Marcus, my son just sat on the sofa. He was pale. He looked hollow. He looked at me, his eyes dead. Dad, he whispered, his voice broken. Why? Why did you do this all these years? You had everything. You were rich. You watched me. You let me. You could have helped. I looked at him. My son's still a child, still blaming me for his own choices. Helped, I said. My voice was cold. It came from the 72nd floor of my tower. I did help you, Marcus. I gave you a college education free of debt. I gave you this home to grow up in. I gave you a good name. I gave you $30,000 in cash the very moment you asked for it. I paused, letting the words hang in the air, and I said, I was prepared to give you this. I reached into my pocket, the pocket of my old postman's sweater. I pulled out the small white envelope, the one with the confetti. I walked over to the coffee table and turned it upside down. The tiny torn pieces of the $1.5 million check scattered across the global intelligence firm report. Lauren's head snapped up, her eyes red and swollen, fixed on the pieces. The check, she whispered. It was real. It was real, I said. It was my gift to my son. It was his inheritance, Marcus. It was his foundation. It was his freedom. It was the money he needed to stand on his own 2 feet, free from you, Lauren, free from your fraudulent, bankrupt family. I looked at Marcus. His face was a wreck of shame and agonizing regret. I was going to give it to you at the wedding, I said. But you didn't want a father at your wedding. You wanted a victim. You gave me the wrong date. You conspired with this stranger to have me declared insane to steal my home, my mother's home. You did that. I pointed to the front door. Go, get out, Dad. Please. Marcus stood up, his legs shaking. Please, I have nowhere to go. We have no money. Lauren, that I said is no longer my concern. Get out of my granddaughter's house. He didn't move. He just stood there, broken. Lauren, however, stood up. Her face was no longer sad. It was just hard. She grabbed her expensive bag, walked to the door, opened it, and walked out without a single word. She didn't look back. Marcus stood there for one moment longer. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. I just looked back. My face was stone. He finally turned, his shoulders slumped, and walked out, closing the door softly behind him. I was alone in Evelyn's house. I sat down in the armchair. It was finally over. 5 months later, the warehouse floor at the EH Enterprises hub in Port District was chaos. Trucks beeping, forklifts, moving men yelling. I was in a hard hat and a safety vest walking the floor. Victor thought I was crazy, but I always liked to check on my operations. I saw him. He was at a loading dock with a digital scanner checking a manifest. He was thinner. He'd shaved his head. He was wearing the same safety vest as everyone else. He saw me, froze for a second, then immediately went back to scanning. I walked over. Harper, I said. He turned startled. Mr. Harper, sir. He wouldn't call me Dad. Not here. The manifest for the Hong Kong shipment, I said. Is it correct? Yes, sir, he replied. I triple-checked it. The container weights are balanced. Good, I said. I turned to walk away. Dad, he called out. I stopped. I turned back. He fumbled in his pocket. He pulled out a crumpled personal check. It's for my first paycheck. It's $300. He held it out to me. It's the first payment for the $30,000. I know it's not much. I know it'll take forever, but it's a start. I looked at the check. I looked at his hands. They were rough, calloused. For the first time in his life, he had calluses. I didn't take the check. Victor James Ellis set up an education trust for Sophia. You will deposit that check and every check after it into that account. You are not paying me back, Marcus. You are paying her back for the future. You tried to steal from her. He looked at the check in his hand, then back at me. His eyes were stinging. He nodded. Yes, sir. Lauren, I asked. She She finalized the divorce last week. He said, his voice low. She moved back east with her parents. I nodded once. Good. Now get back to work. That shipment is late. Marcus nodded again. Yes, sir. He turned and went back to his scanner. I watched him for a moment. He was no longer an heir. He was no longer a con man's victim. For the first time in his life, he was just a man working. I pulled out my own phone. My lock screen was a picture of Sophia laughing, her head thrown back. The legacy was secure. I smiled, and I walked away. Here is a lesson we can all take from Elijah's story. True worth is never defined by the car someone drives, the house they live in, or the clothes they wear. These are just appearances. Real value lies in character integrity and the respect we show one another, especially our family. Greed and manipulation built on a foundation of lies will always crumble and lead to ruin. This story is a powerful reminder that underestimating someone based on a false perception of weakness or poverty is a dangerous game. The quietest person in the room is often the most powerful, and their dignity is an inheritance that can never be stolen. Have you ever been underestimated by the people closest to you? Let me know your story in the comments below.